Okay, so dear students, good morning to all. Now, today we'll go through chapter number 2 that even right now we are going on, specifically from my portion. So, till now, what we have seen in this particular chapter, so like every time if we quickly go through, then we have understood that what is, you can say that, database connectivity and why the connectivity is required. So we all are aware that any application would like to store a data permanently, and the fact is what, that whatever software that you are developing, that is in a different programming language, and the permanent data store, that is a different programming language. So, or you can say that that is your third party solution. So that's why we always required a database connectivity to store a data. And if you look at this particular PPT, so this is the overall goal, that what exactly we want to achieve, that we want to develop a certain Java application which can interact with your database. Now see, here we are using one important concept that is called a JDBC driver. So technically what happened, that your Java application is going to interact with, you can say that, JDBC driver, and that JDBC driver at the end of day going to interact with your database, right? So your DBMS will respond to the JDBC driver. Again, your JDBC driver will ideally respond back to the database. Now if you look at over here, one important question in terms of, you can say that, a JDBC driver, right? So like there are three types of driver that, there are four types of driver that we have discussed. And before that, if you look at this architecture, so over here our Java application that is going to interact with a JDBC API. JDBC API means your java.sql package, right? So your application will use a JDBC API to interact with JDBC driver manager. The driver manager will interact with JDBC driver, and then it is going to integrate with SQL server or Oracle, or based on your database. For your each database you will always have a different driver. Now see, what is our learning part in this chapter? So you can say that we are going to learn a Java application, how to develop a Java application using a JDBC API. That is our learning part. And you can say that this driver manager, driver, that everything is exists. But see, the fact is what, that one theoretical question that is part of our syllabus, that is a type of drivers. And this is again an important questions in terms of GTU examination as well. The reason is what, it is always going to ask that explain a type of driver. So we have gone through in a very much detail that there are technically four types of driver. Type 1, that is your ODBC bridge. Type 2, that is your native API driver. Type 3, that is your middleware server. And type 4, that is your pure Java driver. So we have gone through a advantage, disadvantage of each type of drivers, and we were, you can say that, have seen that how this type of driver has been evolved. Nowadays everybody is using a type 4 driver. So in our, you can say that, all practical setup, we are using a type 4 driver. Now see, if you look at previously, so over here till now what we have seen, that we have considered Oracle as our database, right? And we have gone through one SQL developer tool using which we were actually interacting with the Oracle database, and we have started developing our Java application. Again, to develop any Java application, you can say that we have divided entire application into a 5 basic step. So what this all step that you ideally need to follow, that is, you can say that you need to first of all decide your driver. You are going to load the driver in a step 1. Then in a step 2 you are going to establish the connection. In a step 3 you are going to create a statement object and fire your SQL query onto a database. In a step 4, based on your query you will get a response, fine. And in a step 5 you are going to close the connection. So for each step we have seen that what kind of code we need to write down. Something like class.forName, we will mention our driver path over here, right? Then step 2, that driver manager dot get connection, your URL, username and password that we are going to provide. Then in a step 3, using a connection object, we are going to establish, you can say that using a connection object we are going to create a statement object, and once you have a statement object, based on your query, either you can call a execute query or execute update method. Now again over here we have seen that to call, you can say that insert, update and delete query. So the query which is going to modify your table, that is going to, or we are going to use a method that is called execute update, and the query which you can say that going to, the query which is just going to retrieve a data from a database, over there we are going to use, you can say that execute query method, and over here we will pass our select query. So the execute query method will give you a result set, and execute update method will ideally give you a integer value, and that represent the how many records going to affected in your table. Now see, once you have a, like suppose you have fired a select query, and once you have a particular result set, then that is kind of virtual table within your red. So what you can do that using like rs.next method, you can move on to a first record, then using like rs.getString and column 1 getString column 2, that way you can retrieve all the data. Now step 5, that is very simple, that you are going to close the connection, right? So over here if you look at over the code that we have developed previously, so till now you can say that this is the entire diagram, and our entire chapter that is focused over here. We have looked at the driver in a much detail, fine. Then we have seen that you can say that how you can establish the connection, and now we are going to focus particularly on a statement part, fine. We want to explore a statement, but before that, if I will, or you can say that if I can revise you that if you look at over here, then fine. See, this is the you can say that our SQL developer using which you can connect the table. Now see, it may be possible you are at home and you are not able to connect with this particular IP address. So what you can do, that you can download, you can say that SQL developer or any kind of other database where you can use, you can say that as a your backend, which will be interact with your Java application. And if you look at this particular program, fine. So this is our step 1, how to load a driver. This is our step 2, like driver manager dot get connection, which will establish the connection. This is like once you have a connection object, then using like create statement, you can create a statement object, then using a statement object you can fire your query. Now when you say that execute query, you will get a result set, fine. And using that result set you can scroll it and retrieve a data. So just let me just execute this code. Look at the output. This is the table that we have, and we are retrieving that data. If you look at this table in a, you can say that SQL developer, then these are the table on a Oracle side, and that we are retrieving over here. Now say, if you have a insert, update and delete query, then you can say that statement dot execute update or execute update, then insert, update and delete query that you can fire as well. So it depends that using a statement, either you can say that retrieve a data, or you can insert, update and perform a certain kind of delete operation as well. Now if we focused over here in terms of a statement part, right? So generally statements are going to divided into a 3 category. One is a normal statement, another one that is a prepared statement, and third one that is your callable statement. Now see, the fact is what, that functionality point of view, you can say that your statement and prepared statement both are same, means whatever query that you can fire using a statement, those all query you can fire using a prepared statement also. But see, this is a very much important question in terms of, you can say that 3 place. One, in a practical viva, people can ask you the difference between a statement and prepared statement. The another question that people can ask you in a GTU exam, that differentiate between a statement and prepared statement. And the third question that may be in a technical interview, that people are going to ask, that differentiate the statement and prepared statement. And frankly speaking, people are not aware, means even people are working in an industry for 2-3 years, they don't know that when should I use a statement object and when should I use a prepared statement object, right? So let's try to understood that statement and prepared statement. So as we have discussed, the functionality point of view, both are same, fine. And if you look at this, then we have seen that using a statement object, we are firing a query to the database and database will respond. But see, while you are doing a programming, at that time within your program, let me just show you within your program. If you look at over here, yeah, within a program, when I'm going to compile my code, right? So right now if you look at that, program does not have any compilation error. But suppose over here I'll remove something like this. Instead of select, I will write down like this, okay, select. And if I will save, then this will not give me any compile time error, fine. Even my query is not correct, so this will not give you a compile time error. The reason is what, that Java, that is a different programming language, and the select statement which you have write down, that is a different programming language. So at that place you will never get an error. But if the same code I will try to execute, right, then it will give me a runtime error. Look at this, something like you can say that invalid SQL statement. Let me just correct it. Okay, now that will not give me an, if I'll run it, now it will not give me an error because my SQL statement is correct. Now see, why I want to demonstrate this, that when you are compiling a code, at that time you can say that it will only compile a Java code. It is not going to compile your SQL statement at all. So when SQL statement will be compiled, so you can say that whenever you are running your code, at that time whatever is your SQL query, that will be submitted to the database. Now database is going to compile your SQL query, prepared a execution plan. Execution plan in the sense, it will prepare, you can say that, kind of exe file, then it will execute it and then it will generate a response back to your application. So that is the way your statement is working. Now over here, what is the major problem? The problem is what, that if you have a similar query and if you are going to execute the similar query for a multiple time, at that time, every time when you say that statement.execute query or statement.execute update, that query is going to submit it to the database, and database every time going to compile it, even it is the same query, right? So the fact is what over here, that when you have a similar query, it may affect your performance. The reason is what, if like some query you are firing for a 50,000 time onto a database and the query is same, so 50,000 time that query will be compiled and 50,000 time that query will be executed. So technically what should happen, that your query should be compiled only once, means if you want to execute your query for a 50,000 time, then ideally it should compile once and you can execute, or you should able to execute it for a 50,000 time. Let me just tell you one simple example. Like let's consider a GTU is going to, or previous month GTU has declared the 5th semester result. So what kind of business logic or what kind of query that they are firing, let's consider or assume that the query is something like this: select star from result table where enrollment number is equal to this, and you can say that a semester is equal to 5. That kind of query they have suppose 5, right? Now ideally if you look at, then all GTU students are going to check their results. So technically what happened, that your query means like we have a 50,000 student in a 5th semester, they are checking their result, then 50,000 times that query will be compiled and that query will be executed if you are going to use a statement object. Similar way, like nowadays all the banking system are providing us a facility, then using your mobile number there is certain kind of, you can say that a toll free number has been given. On that number you can give a missed call, so you will get your balance, or they will SMS you a balance. Now in that case, ideally what happened, let's imagine that what kind of query they may have a write down. It's something like this: select star from balance table where mobile number is equal to this, whatever that mobile number you have provided. So if you consider like SBI bank or HDFC bank, where there are a large number of customers are there, and approximately even 1 crore customers are just checking their balance on a daily basis, then you can say that approximately 1 crore time the similar query is going to compile and the similar query is going to execute it. So if you are using a statement in that scenario, then ideally what happen, that your performance will get heated, right? And you may have a smaller response time. So what exactly Java is advising, that in this kind of situation, instead of using, you can say that a statement object, technically you should go with the prepared statement object. So look at this, like this is what we have discussed on a statement object. Now in terms of prepared statement, ideally what happen, that whenever you are creating a prepared statement object, at that time itself you are going to submit your query back to the database. Now what database will do, database will compile your query, right, and it will prepare the execution plan. So once you can say that execution plan is ready, then using a prepared statement, whenever you say that execute query or execute update, your query will be, you can say that, directly executed. So every time it is not going to compile your query. Look at this. Now see, the coding point of view, again there is a very minor changes. Previously using a connection object we were creating a statement object. Here using a connection object, what we are going to do, we are simply going to create, you can say that, a prepared statement object, and then you can provide your query. Fine. Now once you have a prepared statement object, what you can do using a prepared statement, either you can call a execute query method or you can call a execute update method. Now see over here, before we go through advantage, let's go through, you can say that, coding, so we can understand it more effectively. Look at this. Now over here, like again our programming framework will remain a common, right? Like I have taken one class called prepared statement demo, which contains one public static void main method. Now again see, look at the code, it is like 80% similar code. Step 1, I'm going to load my driver. So whatever is your driver, like either Oracle or MySQL, that URL you will give. Step 2, that is a driver manager dot get connection, right? So you will give your URL, then you are going to provide, you can say that, your username, and then you will provide a password. So this line will establish the connection with the database and you will get a connection object. Now see, once you have a connection object, then using a connection object you can call a prepared statement. Now the fact is what, previously what we were doing in terms of statement, like connection object only we were creating a statement object. Over here the same way, using a connection object I am creating a prepared statement object. But the difference is what, that when I am creating a prepared statement object, at that time itself I am submitting my query over here. Fine. If you look at over here, in this case, when I say that statement dot execute query, at that time I was submitting my query. But here when I am creating a prepared statement, at that time directly I will write down my query. So now ideally what happens when your prepared statement is created, at the same time when you are running a program, this query will be submitted to the database, and database will ideally compile this query and prepare with the execution plan. Now what happened that whenever you want to execute this particular query, you just need to say something like statement.execute query only. Okay, here you are not going to pass your query because that query you have already submitted to the database. Now see the few questions that you may have, something like over here, if you look at the query, that select star from student where name is equal to question mark and roll number is equal to question marks. Now why we are providing over here the question marks? The fact is what, you can give a data something like this where name is equal to dash ABC, fine, that you can also give, and something like roll number is equal to, you can say that 1, that you can also write down, that is technically completely correct. But by providing this question mark, what we can achieve is that whatever is the question mark value, that you can set later, right? Means what, like suppose my prepared statement is ready over here, and now if I want to set that, let's consider this question marks have a serial number indexing. First question marks will have a serial number 1, second will have a serial number 2, and so on. So now see what I can do, I can write down something like this, statement dot or prepared statement object dot set string, consider my first question mark as a ABC, right? And then I have again write down something like that prepared statement dot set integer, consider, you can say that my second question mark which is over here, and its value will be considered as a 1. So now technically my query is something like this, you can say that select star from student where name is equal to ABC and roll number is equal to 1, fine. So now whenever I will say that, you can say that statement object means my prepared statement object dot, you can say that execute query, at that time it will return me a result set. Or when I say that prepared statement dot execute query, it will execute this kind of query on a database like select star from student where name is equal to ABC and roll number is equal to 1. Now what my result set will contain, my result set will have all the records with name ABC and roll number 1, and I am simply printing it over here, fine. Now see, suppose if the similar query that I want to fire again, so I do not need to submit this query back to the database. What I can do now, simply either I can directly say that a statement dot, you can say that statement dot or prepared statement dot execute query, fine. So I can say that statement or prepared statement dot execute query. In that case technically what happened, the similar query will be executed again, fine. But suppose you want to change the parameter, so in that case what you can do, that you can again set your question mark 1 and your question mark 2, fine. So over here ideally you need to change the value of, you can say that a question mark 1 and question mark 2. So I say that prepared statement dot set string, right? Question mark 1 as a XYZ and question mark 2 as a roll number 2. Now see, this set string, set integer, that depends on a data type. Like my name has a data type as a string, my roll number has a data type as a, you can say that integer. That's why I have given a 2 over there. So now what happened, once I will write down this statement, fine, my query will become something like this, that select star from student where name is equal to XYZ and roll number is equal to 2. So now when I am going to execute my query, at that time it will give me a result set, and this result set will ideally, you can say that, contains the all records where name is XYZ and roll number is equal to 2. Fine. So what is the purpose of prepared statement? That you can say that functionality point of view both are same, either you say that statement or prepared statement, but in terms of, you can say that, efficiency, in terms of ability or improving a performance, we sometime have to go with the prepared statement when you have a similar query and you want to execute it for the multiple time. So over here, if you look at in this example, if instead of prepared statement I have just used a statement object, then what happened? The same query will be compiled multiple time onto a database, right? But over here this query is compiling only once and we are going to execute it for a multiple time. Now see, the fact is what? That if your query is changed, in that case you have to create your different prepared statement object. Fine. So if you look at over here, like look at this, suppose I have a one statement object, I can fire a select star from student table, then I can fire like execute update, update query, insert query, delete query, that you can fire using a same statement object. But if you are using a prepared statement, and you can say that if you want to fire another query, at that time using a connection object you need to create a new prepared statement. So look at this, like suppose my query has been changed, like connection dot prepared statement. Now instead of select query it is a insert query, right? So like insert into student values and 3 question marks. Now see, I can give these 3 question marks again, something like a hard coded value, means I can write down something like this. Let me just check. I can write down like this, that like name, that is Rahul 123, that I can write down, then that is my first parameter, and then like 52, that is a roll number, and like third parameter, that is, you can say that my third parameter, that is a city, or you can say that address, right? So that is something like let's give a city as a something like Jamnagar. Okay, so this query is also correct. Fine, this query is also correct, but what we are doing, we are immediately not setting this value. Okay, over here we are putting a question marks. Now why we are putting a question marks? That later on you can set the parameter. Again, one more thing, keep in mind that when you are changing a parameter, it doesn't mean that your query is different. Technically it is the same query. Say it's something like this, suppose select star from student where name is equal to ABC, roll number is equal to 1, and select star from student where name is equal to XYZ and roll number is equal to 2. So these both the query are ideally same, just we are changing the parameters. Fine. So technically you can say that we are putting a question marks over here to represent, you can say that ideally what I want to represent over here, that later on I can set a certain parameter at this place. So what I did, like let's consider I am setting my first question mark value as a 1, 2, 3. My second question mark value roll number is equal to like 52, and my city or my address, that is something like Jamnagar. Fine. Now my query becomes something like this, insert into student values, the first question mark, comma, second question mark, comma, third question marks, and that value I am setting over here. So my query is like this, insert into student values, name as a Rahul 123, my roll number is 52, and my address is JAN. Fine. So now when I say that execute update, at that time ideally what happened, it will insert one record with this particular details. So let's look at our table, what content it have right now. It is something like this. My table have approximately 5 record, 1 record with XYZ, 1 record with ABC, and if now I will try to execute the code. So look at this. This line will retrieve my 1 record with name ABC and roll number 1. This will retrieve a record with name XYZ and roll number 2. And I am also printing it over here, and this line, that is inserting, you can say that, 1 record into a table. So let's just save it, fine, and let's try to execute the record or execute the program over here. So look at this, it has retrieved 1 record ABC, 1 Raj code. That is my first query. Again the similar query I am firing with the different parameters. So I am retrieving another records over here, fine, and at the end I am inserting one more record. If I want to see this record, then ideally I need to go to the database. If I will refresh it over here, look at this, like Rahul 123, roll number 52, address is Jamnagar, that record has been inserted. Now see, over here what is the advantage? Like suppose if you want to insert a more than 1 record, right? So what you need to do, you do not need to compile the same query at a database side again. You are just going to repeat this logic. What you can do it over here, something like this, fine, with, you can say that, a certain another information, like let's consider like student 1, okay, roll number is something like 53, and you can say that address is like Jamnagar 1, something like this, and I will set this value. Again I will say simply execute update. So if you want to repeat, or if you want to insert 100 records, you just need to repeat this logic, fine. So what is our concern? That when you are going to execute this code 100 times, or you can say that you are inserting the record 100 record into your table, your query will be compiled only once, fine, but it will be executed 100 times, and that way you can achieve, you can say that, your performance. Now see, over here if using a similar like statement object, if I am firing like insert into student values, and if I'll fire this, or this is the way, if I'll insert a record in a table, or I'll insert 100 record, in that case ideally what happen, 100 times this query will be compiled at database, 100 times this query will be executed at a database. Over here what happen, only once when you are creating a prepared statement, at that time only your query will be compiled, and then you can say that over here your query you can only execute for a multiple time. But one thing we need to keep in mind, see, look at this, over here when I have created the prepared statement first time, at that time I have a different query, and now if my query is changed, then I have to use, you can say that, or I have to create the prepared statement object again. Now see, suppose if you feel that, okay sir, now again I want to print the content of my table, right? So in that case, if you are going to write down like statement.execute query, then that will not work. The reason is what? That on your prepared statement you have already override the another one new object. So if you feel that this prepared statement object st that I may use further, then technically over here you need to do not overwrite on a same object, but you can do something like this, that okay, prepared statement object st1 that I will create, right? So over here like st1 st1 st1, then you can say that like st1 st1 st1, fine. So now what happened, both the prepared statement object are different, okay, and if I want to retrieve a certain information, something like this, that's, let I want to repeat this logic, fine. So I can write down over here that I want to set a name as a, let's consider Rahul, and roll number is a 5, fine. So let's see that name is equal to like Rahul, and my roll number is something like, you can say that 5. So now what again I am doing, like I am writing down statement, that is my select query. Look at this, right? Statement means st object, that is a prepared statement object, and that is my select query. So I have said name is equal to Rahul and roll number is equal to, you can say that 5. So my query is like this: select star from student where name is equal to Rahul and roll number is equal to 5. So it will retrieve all the records with name is equal to Rahul, and you can say that roll number is equal to 5. Again I say that execute query. I got the result set and I am printing it again. Fine. So let's just give one something like, so we can differentiate. Again I am retrieving the record. Again I'm retrieving the records. Something like this. Fine. Now let's try to execute this code. Okay, so look at this. Like first of all, using, you can say that a first prepared statement object, I have inserted or I have retrieved 2 records. Then I have created another prepared statement object, right, that is called st1, using which I have inserted 2 records, and then again using a statement object I have set my parameters. Using a st object I have retrieved my records, that is like name is equal to Rahul and roll number is equal to 5. So now these informations are available with us. It is printing. These 2 records should be inserted in a table. So if you refresh this, fine, look at this, like Rahul 123, student 1, these all records again has been inserted. So technically you can say that prepared statement that will be helpful in terms of efficiency point of view. See, all the tasks which your statement can perform, those all tasks your prepared statement can also perform. Keep in mind. Now see, in an exam, specifically in a GTU exam, in terms of theory question, they may ask that what is the difference between a statement and prepared statement. Fine. So for that I have given theoretical details in a PPT, like this is a statement object, this is a prepared statement, how exactly it works. Fine. And if they will ask in terms of, you can say that program, then may be possible 2 ways they can ask, that develop a given Java based application using a statement object, or develop a given Java definition using a prepared statement object. That they may be asked something like that. Okay, if let me just go through if I have a certain questions from a GTU. Fine, so we can also go through it. Consider bank updation, deletion of table, print the values. Okay, what is JDBC statement? Type JDBC program, URL, callable statement, describe, give the statement. Look at this, give the use of statement, prepared statement and callable statement. Write a code to insert 3 record into a student table using a prepared statement. Fine. So generally what happen, they may ask a question something like, you can say that directly in a question they are telling that use a statement or prepared statement. But one tricky way people can ask you a question is something like that. Write a JDBC application which will insert a 5 record in a given table. Now see, inserting a 5 record in a given table means technically they are expecting that you should use a prepared statement, because a similar query you are going to execute for a 5 times. So what they are expecting, that as a programmer you need to identify and you need to use a concept of prepared statement to insert your particular table, because the similar query we are going to insert for or execute for a multiple time. So two way, one question that is for, you can say, that theoretical part, the difference between statement and prepared statement. The another question that may be asked, that is related to application or related to program, right? That may be possible. So this is all about, you can say, that a difference between a statement and prepared statement. Now if you look at that, initially we have discussed there are three kind of statement. One is a statement, another one is prepared statement, and third one, that is a callable statement. Now see, over here, before we move on to okay, just go through the advantages, like improve the performance of an application compared to the statement object that execute the same query multiple times, provide a programmatic approach to set the values. Now in a real time, as a programmer, why you should know when should I use a statement or when should I use a prepared statement. The reason is what, if you are going through right now, I think in a software engineering we are preparing certain kind of SRS documents. So generally in an industry, what people are doing that they are mentioning in a software requirement that response time of my software should be less than 1 second. Okay, now that kind of one small line that have written, and once the entire product is ready and you realize that your response time is like 1.5 seconds, so technically what happened, your entire product get rejected because you are not meeting whatever has been written down into a SRS. Now in that case, ideally what happened, that as a programmer you need to take a call while developing a code, that should I go with the statement or should I go with the prepared statement. So see, if you have a different query and always you want to execute a different query onto a database, then either you use a statement or prepared statement. Performance point of view, both are equal. But when you have a similar query and if you want to execute it for a multiple time, at that time technically we should go with the prepared statement option. Now see, before we move further, let's have a few questions from your side. Today we have gone through a two part, right? Statement and prepared statement. Still we want to explore more on a statement side, and that is, you can say, that your callable statement. So tomorrow what we are going to do, that we will go with, you can say, that callable statement. Now in a callable statement, what is my basic expectation, that you should know a few things on a database side, and that is your stored procedures. Fine. So I'm requesting that now definitely everybody have a lots of time, so you people can go through what is stored procedure, your third semester DBMS subject. Go through that, what is stored procedure. So technically stored procedure, that is a function at, you can say, that database end, and when you want to execute that function from your Java application. So now look at the scenario. See, from a Java application, if you look at this diagram again, that what we want to achieve till now, that from Java application we have seen how we can fire a query, right? That we have seen, that from Java application how we can insert query, select, update, delete query we can fire. Now what we want to learn, that suppose certain stored procedures over here, and from Java I want to call that stored procedure. So it's something like from Java function you are calling one function in a database. So that's what we are going to learn tomorrow. So I'm requesting all students, if you get a chance, if you have a you can say that spare some time and go through a stored procedures. So we will done with the statement portion. Fine. I hope that everything is going fine. All of you are requested to stay safe, stay at your home, take care from coronavirus. Thank you class, thank you all of you for your support.